Hello everybody, Jason here from the At the Coalface podcast. I've created a new sub-series called Mentoring Moments, and Mentoring Moments is composed of clips taken from my one-on-one and group mentorship sessions where we discuss e-commerce, digital, retail, and so much more. Hopefully you get a lot out of this. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again today. I'm here with Jagmeet for one of our one-to-one mentorship sessions, and he's got some really good questions. He's managing sales for a Omni-Channel platform in the APAC region, and they don't have an e-commerce component of this Omni-Channel platform, but it does pause and it does other things. And his key question for me out of the gate today was, okay, we want to obviously be able to have discussions with heads of digital. We want to have discussions with heads of marketing, people that would be using our technology, heads of retail, heads of merchandising. Your technology is primarily not used by e-com teams or e-com managers, but it would come under the purview typically of either an IT manager or a marketing manager or head of retail, head of merchandising. Those are the types of people that would typically be interacting with your technology. But in order to have that more whole of business view and a whole of business discussion, because that's where you want to play, you want to be an essential piece of their omni-channel stack, in addition to, of course, their e-commerce platform and their ERP and maybe their CRM. A lot of these businesses will have all three of those components. They'll have the point of sale piece, they'll have some sort of omni-channel system integration plus e-commerce and typically an ERP or at least an inventory and or warehouse management system at the very least on the back end. And so your key question was, what are some of the type of metrics that some of these businesses, if they're an omni-channel business and they are selling online, plus they're selling through physical stores, what are some of the key metrics that they're looking at as a business of levers to pull to try to improve their overall business performance? And I started off by saying that really it does depend often on the vertical they're playing in. It depends on their life cycle as a business, whether they're a startup or a young business or whether they're a legacy business and they've been around for a very long time. Depends on how mature the rest of their technical stack is and their ability to do things like attribution of where traffic actually comes from. Now with the death of slowly dying out of third-party cookies and iOS privacy changes, a lot of brands now where they may have historically looked at, for example, performance marketing performance and saying, okay, we drive, say, 70% of our website traffic through performance marketing, whether that's Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be. That's very common. That's something that we very common see. Somewhere between 50 and 75% of traffic to a website can be paid in performance marketing. Now, that's an even higher percentage of that when a business is young, when it's very new and it's got no SEO, it's got no representation, they got no domain authority, they've got no brand power yet to speak of, so their brand demand is very low. Then particularly when they start out, they're almost always relying on performance marketing or some form of guerrilla social marketing to get the word out about their new brand. And so when they first start out, they're oftentimes going to be looking at conversion rate by source, for example, whether that's organic versus performance marketing, paid marketing. They're going to be looking at things like bounce rate. They're going to be looking at things like I said, conversion rate. They're going to be looking at things like average order value, because they won't be looking at CLV yet, because if they're young, they don't have enough data to even calculate a CLV or what their reasonable time frame that they should measure customers based on churn, right? They don't even know what churn looks like for their business yet, whether it's 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, the average repurchase rate. And if they don't sell a consumable item, and they sell something that's long-lived, like mattresses or something like that, then their customer life cycle will be 10 years, not 12 months, for example. So there's a lot of factors that come into play here. But one of the things that I'm seeing that's changing, and I think for the better in our market, is the fact with the impending death of third-party cookies and the iOS privacy changes and the cost of doing business through Meta, the lack of targeting now through the likes of Meta and Google, what brands are realizing that they really outsourced all of their targeting, their customer targeting and their remarketing. They pretty much completely outsourced that to the likes of Facebook and Google. And that was a very risky proposition, because now all of a sudden your data is inside their walled garden, and now all of a sudden you're utterly reliant on them for going out and finding new customers for customer acquisition, as well as remarketing to customers that don't purchase the first time they come to your website. Now, what a lot of brands are realizing is that was risky, because they effectively handed all their data over, and then Google and Facebook started charging them for access to that data. And they realized that's not a smart play. And so in order to help contain CAC and in order to help bring more predictability to all aspects of online business operations, they have started to focus on zero and first party data. Okay. And so what they've started to do is they've started to move away from just a pure marketing automation platform to now CDP platforms. They've started to move away from just looking at experience on the front end in terms of personalization and trying to use AI and total digital smarts to personalize the experience using platforms like Nosto and Monetate and all the other personalization platforms out there, instead of search and merch platforms, et cetera, that use forms of AI and machine learning to try to guess what is going to assist the customer to convert and find the products that they want. Now what they're realizing is actually what we need to be capturing combination of both zero and first party data, meaning we don't want just first party data and behavioral data, meaning we already know. We know what a customer is doing in terms of what categories they visit. We know what products they look at on the PDP. We know what products they're adding to their shopping cart. We know what products they're adding to their wish list. We know what products they're adding to compare. We know what products they purchase. We know what products they abandoned in their cart. We know all these things. We know how they interact with our email, although less so now due to the iOS changes. It's not as reliable, but we mostly know, particularly if they convert off of email. We typically know that they've converted off of email, typically. As a result of that, they go, okay, we've got this really rich source of first-party data, and until they authenticate, we won't necessarily be able to assign that to a specific individual, but we will be able to assign it to a specific user, even if we don't necessarily know who that user is. So we will, when we recognize that user again, we will be able to personalize their journey across our digital touch points. Now, what they're also realizing is that unless we start to join that together with a unified customer profile, including explicit preference data, meaning zero-party data, of how they want to be served and what things on your website they're interested in and what contact channels they're interested in hearing from you through, whether it be social direct messaging, whether it be SMS, whether it be email, whether it be snail, until we can start joining all of this information together and then sending very granular information off to the performance marketing platforms to create lookalike audiences from, we will forever be a slave to those platforms. And the other thing that brands are very quickly starting to understand is that though we might understand the customer's AOV, we may understand how much they've spent with us over a 12-month life cycle, they are realizing that is not the only aspects of a customer's experience with us that we need to be looking at to find out and segment whether they're valuable to us as a merchant. We need to know, what is their cost to serve? How often do they contact us through our service channels on average per order? How often do they return items to us on average per order? They need to understand, they need to have this 360-degree view of the customer, and they need to have technology that not only can aggregate, but segment based on this data. So all other things being equal, you might have two customers that look, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same to you in terms of the money that they've spent with you over a 12-month period, the types of products that they bought from you. If you purely looked at the revenue numbers or even the CLV for those customers, they may look identical, but one may return 0 products on average per order, or 0.5 products per order to you, and the other one might return 2 products on average per order to you. One might contact customer service 2 or 3 times per average per order, whether it be live chat, phone, help desk, whatever it might be, email, whatever. And the other customer, again, might be 0.5 contacts per order, right? Those don't have the same costs to your business, right? Then we also have to look at CAC, customer acquisition costs, ideally down to customer, and if not down to customer level, at least by channel. Right? So all other things being equal, we need to understand not only the revenue or profitability that the customer drives for us, but the impact of their behaviors on our profitability across them as a customer. And we need to be able to do that level of segmentation before we go out and try to look at customers and acquiring customers that look like those high-value customers to us. And it's taking the form of lots of new technologies, but it's also taking the form of just caring more about the customer and caring more about their journey. For a long time, for example, makeup brands and hair brands would actually do quizzes on their websites. And they would say, tell us your hair color, tell us your hair type, tell us your skin tone, tell us all these different things about what is your current color, what's the color you want. Makeup brands in particular and hair brands in particular have been very good about collecting preference data for a very long time, but many other brands haven't. And we're now, because zero-party data is becoming so important about those explicit preferences, about those explicit things, that the customer wants you to do for them and provide for them and tailor their customer journey. Instead of you assuming based on their behavior on your website, they want you to ask them, and then they want you to service them exactly. We're seeing brands that are now in the fashion space, for example, trying to say, okay, what are the types of looks that you like? What are your favorite colors? What are all these things that you like? And then we're going to start putting together looks for you dynamically based on all the products that we have available at the time that you log into our website. And we're going to have effectively a fit optimizer for you, right? We're going to implement technology like wear technology, which will allow us to get you the right size for your products, right? And make sure that it is the best fit for you. So we're brands, because of all of these privacy changes, which actually, in my opinion, have nothing to do with privacy. They have to do with walled gardens and these technology platforms trying to lock you into them. But I think that these moves towards a more private world have had the positive effect of forcing marketers to actually think about the customer experience in new ways. Instead of just focusing on transactional marketing, they're actually focusing on a holistic engagement with their customer. They're focusing on everything to do with that life cycle. They're focusing on, instead of every single email being a promotional transactional email, they're actually thinking about how is my brand going to be perceived? How can I onboard them into my brand to make them feel more welcome and sticky? How can I create a membership program instead of a loyalty program, right? Because loyalty programs are so passé. How can I create something like my version of Prime, right? That's unique to me and creates a really unique experience for my customers. So that's a very long-winded way to say that our industry is undergoing probably the single most dramatic fundamental change I've seen apart from mobile. From the beginning of e-commerce, and I've been involved in this for over 20 years, mobile was the great game changer. It became the remote control of our lives, and it fundamentally changed absolutely the way that we interact with each other and the way that we interact with the internet and the way that we interact with merchants, right? And we do business online. So that was the most earth-shattering game changer of our industry, except for these privacy changes, I think, are going to ultimately force our industry to mature and grow in ways that it's needed to for a very long time, and dramatically reduce our dependence. So brands are going to have to actually build community around their brands. And a lot of retail brands that don't do any value add beyond just aggregating and selling stuff that everybody else is selling, they're going to go the way of the dodo, because they're not adding any. It used to be just having a product was good enough. Just making it available online was good enough. That's no longer the case, because there's 100 other retailers that will also offer it online against you, and probably cheaper than you, and probably get it to them faster than you. So brands are realizing they actually have to go back to the lost art of true marketing as opposed to transactional sales-based marketing. And they're actually having to form a relationship, and they're actually having to drive for their brand, for their products, and for their categories. And that is something that a lot of digital marketers who grew up in a digital first world, they never learned those tried and true marketing techniques, how to generate desire. And so I think that there's a steep learning curve for lots of us in the industry, but it's an exciting thing to watch.
Oh, absolutely. And from our perspective, we see a similar situation with our customers, where they're now able to get access to that data of customers who are walking into the stores, which historically they would not be able to capture. And now, because they've got that email address for that particular customer who's bought a certain item, they are using and beginning to use that to market better to those customers. And the general feedback has been shoppers are willing to share more data as long as they see you using that data to serve them better. Otherwise, they think it is a waste of time. So to your point about community and creating those communities as brands and servicing the shopper better is absolutely coming as a front focus for a lot of retail brands that we're working with as well.
A lot of that doesn't necessarily have to be anything earth-shattering either. For me, for example, I am happy to give my email address and have my single view of the customer at point of sale, just if I don't have to take a printed receipt and keep track of it anymore. Just having digital receipts and being able to see my offline purchases online when I log in, and if something breaks or I need to return something, just being able to return in store, give them my email address, and they'll see, oh yeah, I see when you bought this 6 months ago, cool, no problem. Just the fact that I don't have to take a printed receipt and look after that printed receipt is usually enough. Right? Now, if they lump something on top, if they lump in a membership program or a loyalty program, whatever, then that's great. That's fantastic. And it's great to offer those additional benefits and being able to have a unified cart, for example. And if they unify the online experience and the offline experience tightly, then if I added something online to my cart online, if the in-store salespeople can see that once I give them my name, and they can see what's in my cart, and they can give me information, they can guide me to those places in the store where those products are, and they can give me guidance and support and consultation around those things, then fantastic. But I think that there's quite a lot to be said for just resurfacing the data that you have on that customer and every interaction with you across all touch points, just that alone is enough for a lot of customers to say, I see massive value in this.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what we hear from our customers all the time. So being able to enable the store associate to have information on what your abandoned cart looks like, or what is sitting in your wish list, and can I use that data to now sell to you and also serve you better in the entire process, is what customers are using us more and more for. And talking about capturing that email address at the point of sales and not having to worry about, oh, where's my receipt gone? Or I have to now go and look for it. Or being just able to walk into a store and say, hey, I bought this online. I don't have my receipt. Can you please use my email address and pull up my record of what I purchased, and I want to make a return? That is gold, right? So that is where we are saying people or customers on our platform are able to convert. So about 60% of people that come in to make a return for something they bought online are able to not only convert them into another sale, but also increase their average order value by another 40%.
Amazing. The other benefit is that you can then have unified store credits. So if someone returns something online and they want to spend that money in store, or if they return something in store and want to spend that money online, if they've got a unified store credit balance that can be used across all systems, massive benefit to the customer. If they've got a coupon code that they can use in store and online, massive benefit to the customer. If they've got a promotion that's available online and in store, massive benefit to the customer. But basically, if we can take all of the experiential stuff and just make it super brain dead easy for the customer to consume experiences with us and have them be as identical as possible between online and off, I mean, that for most customers is enough value to justify giving you my email address and saying, just make it all harmonized. Just make sure that when I log in, I can see everything I've done offline. And when I share my information with you in person, you can see everything I've done with you online. Just make sure that's unified, and I will be happy as a customer. In many instances, because so many brands don't do that, that alone is actually quite a differentiator for a lot of brands.
Yeah, and while you talk about that, Jason, and while it all sounds good and easy, I think technology plays such a big role there, right? We talk to fashion and apparel customers across this market, and there are so many of them who struggle to offer a unified loyalty program because their tech in store will not work with the tech online and those kinds of situations. And when they talk to us and when they see what the solution platform can deliver for them, they're just blown away. So it's also about having that exposure and, more importantly, that vision that this is where we want to take our brand and our brand experience in serving that shopper. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. So I'm here once again with Sean Mellis, and we're on one of our one-to-one calls. Thanks again for joining me today, Sean.
My pleasure.
So good to be here. And I'm really thankful. You always come up with very thoughtful questions. You always guide us with an agenda that's always challenging, always fun. I always learn a lot. Hopefully I can share some value from the trenches. That's my goal.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm very interested in your answer for this one.
Good stuff. We were talking a little bit before about some of the challenges when you're a relatively small agency or you're really trying to make a name for yourself in the space. And almost all agencies or service providers or partners will be in the position that you've just described to me, which is you have an opportunity in a specific software vertical or platform space. You have an opportunity to maybe partner with one vendor very closely to the point where maybe you're exchanging leads with each other, maybe you're sharing ideas, maybe they're doing some special partner enablement for you that they don't necessarily do for all their partners. There's an opportunity to create a collaboration, a level of collaboration with some of your vendors that goes over and above what it would for other vendors that you might choose to work with that might even be a good fit for you. And so one of the things we were talking about was, how do we handle a situation where a vendor basically almost gives us an ultimatum and says, hey, we don't want you working with any of our, what we perceive as being competitors in our market. We want you to basically tell them to bugger off, and we want you to solely partner with us. And your question to me was, what does that look like? How should I handle this? Is that a good idea? Is that smart? What are the risks? That's the context of what we were talking about. Would that be a fairly fair characterization of what we were talking about?
Yeah, that's it. Nailed it.
Nice. Now every situation is slightly different. And so this recommendation is reasonably generic for a reason. And there are always specific scenarios where this advice may not be appropriate and you may choose to take a different path. But from a generic 50,000 foot view, My position on this, based on many years of experience working with lots of vendors across multiple different software verticals, is you never, ever want to be basically at the mercy of a single vendor. And there's many reasons for that. They could change course as a company. They could decide to take their software in a direction that no longer works for you. They could start to target an ICP that no longer works for you. They could go public. They could change their partner tiering. They could change their qualification requirements. They could change their testing requirements to qualify on the platform. They could change. There's so many things that can happen with a platform over time that may not work for you as a business, that to be joined at the hip to only one vendor partner in a specific space is just super risky. It concentrates risk. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have the same level or degree of focus in your partnership across multiple partners. It's always a good idea to keep your partners and vendors honest, and by being transparent with them and saying, look, yes, I have a big focus on you guys. Yes, we're developing deep capabilities on your platform. Yes, we want to work very closely with you. Yes, we would appreciate any leads that come our way from you. And we would do everything in our power. If you were to send us a lead, we would do everything in our power to steer the conversation back to your platform and not answer questions about other platforms or guide them to other platforms other than yours. We would always do our best. If you send us a lead to hopefully help you close on this platform, we would do our best to steer the conversation back to the benefits of your platform. We're not going to lie to the customer and we're not going to be deceptive, but we're going to try to help you close deals that you send to us as best we can, whilst also being honest and transparent with our customers. I think it's always a good idea to keep your vendors honest and be very transparent with them. Hey, you are not the only vendor in this space that we work with because of XYZ reasons. And the number one of those XYZ reasons is no one platform is going to be perfect for every single client. It's impossible. It is literally impossible for one platform to be all things to all people. And so there will be certain situations where customers will come to you and either one of two things will be true. They'll either come to you and say, we're going with this Y platform. So let's say you're a partner of X, and either also a partner with Y or maybe even not a partner with Y, but a customer comes to you and says, we are going with Y. We've already done our due diligence. We've already signed a contract. We would love to work with you. We would love you to implement Y for us because we think you're really good. Will you help us with Y? Now, you don't want to be in a position because you've had this allegiance to X that you now no longer can even do work on Y because you're now committed to X, right? Also, there are situations where you will want to recommend, and it will be appropriate to recommend Y because X is not a great fit for the customer. But if you are aligned with a sole platform, it means you can no longer recommend Y, even if it's the best thing for the customer. Now, I'm in a position where I will always have at least 2 vendors that I work with across a software class or software type or software vertical, so that I've at least got a few options for my customers. Now, if I think that a customer comes to me and neither of those platforms are a great fit for them, I will help them go through a search and select process for an alternate platform, even if I'm not a partner of that platform. If I just know these 2 or 3 platforms that I'm partnered with just don't work for you because of whatever reason, I will help you go through the search and select process for another platform that might be a good fit for you, even if I don't directly benefit from it, even if it doesn't make me look good to that particular vendor, even if it doesn't result in any sort of partnership benefit to me. What I want is the best outcome for my customer, and I know you do too, Sean. And so my general advice is always have at least 2 partnerships in a specific software vertical or platform space. If one of them goes a direction that's not good for you or your customers, you've always got a safety net.
That's great. I did come up with a follow-up question. You said selecting these 2 partners, or 2 would be a sweet spot. Should you be selecting the top 2 in the field in terms of market share and overall features and capabilities, or should you be considering maybe selecting 2 that don't cross over as much? If it's a Venn diagram, there's only a tiny slither in terms of what type of industries they work with, so you're able to cover a larger scope, or should you be backing the 2 fastest horses?
The answer is it truly depends. Sometimes there's a strategic reason sometimes where you'll pick a second partner that maybe isn't as well known, isn't as popular, but they're hungrier. They've got maybe a better partner model. Maybe they've got a better partner enablement model. Maybe they service verticals that you're really strong in and you want a strong offering for those specific verticals. Or they are in a position because they are fast growing. Let's say they're small but fast growing. And let's say they're very aggressive in the marketplace. Like I'm thinking of, just to use as an example, when Gorgias first started out, Gorgias is a very popular help desk platform in the e-commerce space, which I work in. And when Gorgias first started out, they were scrappy, they were hungry, they were the unknown quantity. But I tell you, some of the things they were doing in terms of guerrilla marketing in the marketplace, they were coming to their partners or potential partners and saying, we will buy out our biggest competitors' contracts. So let's say you had a contract with Zendesk, or you had a contract with Freshdesk, or you had a contract with some other competitor of Gorgias. They so strongly backed themselves that they said, you got a 1-year contract, 2-year contract, 3-year contract with one of our competitors. We will buy you out to migrate you to Gorgias. That made massive waves in our industry. And that's what got a lot of partners to jump on board with Gorgias, because man, they were generating so much buzz that as a partner, it would just made sense to be aligned with them. And not to mention their product was very good. If their product was crap, it wouldn't have mattered. But their product was good. They were super hungry in terms of product development, and they were making big waves in the market. So even though they were small and scrappy, a lot of partners jumped on board because they could see where the Gorgias train was going, and they wanted to jump on board early. Now, in some software spaces, the market is very mature. There isn't necessarily a scrappy competitor in place that's worthy of your time, attention, and they're not necessarily going to be generating buzz. They're not going to necessarily be generating extra business for you, in which case I would take a long, hard look at that. And I would say, okay, if there's two leading platforms in the space and they both want to work with me because they are the leading platforms in the space and they're go-tos, then that would be a justification for taking the two big players on.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I guess it just depends on the goals of the business and what you want to offer and service, and maybe the roadmaps of those companies too. What are their visions? What are they looking to create and own?
100%. And just remember that if they get acquired or they go public or something, a large, significant, potentially business altering event happens, be prepared to pivot, because that may adversely impact your business and your partnership in a way that you go, okay, I'm looking for the exits for whatever reason. I've seen this happen before too, where you'll be tightly aligned with a vendor partner that works really well. You've had a historically great relationship with them, and then they go public and it turns to shit because now all of a sudden they are more answerable to public shareholders. They're doing public financial quarterly releases and earnings announcements, and they've got to show growth, and all these things start to change once a company goes public, or they have a significant liquidity event, or they're bought by private equity or something like that. They will oftentimes undergo a structural shift inside the business that sometimes no longer aligns with how you partner with them.
Yeah, sounds good. How about frequency of communication with these partners? What would you suggest is important or appropriate to be touching base with your partnerships manager?
My partners I'll generally have a minimum of a monthly call with them. Now, if we're in the middle of a lot of projects together, or a lot of potential deals, or a lot of leads that they need help closing, or they effectively need an outside consultant to help a customer, a lead, to decide between them and say a competitor, then obviously that cadence can increase to maybe once a week or as appropriate with that specific opportunity. But I would say a great cadence is once a month with a partner manager. If just a normal cadence is a once a month cadence.
Perfect.
Awesome. Look, I think these are great questions. These partnership questions are so appropriate for such a broad range of different types of consultants, agencies, freelancers, etc. These partnership discussions, they can be really challenging. And sometimes the partner model of one platform will be so much more beneficial for you that sometimes if it's a toss-up between two platforms, when you look at their partner program, sometimes one is so far superior from a partnership perspective, whether it be they're going to send you leads, or whether they've got better partner enablement, or whether their commercial structure for you is better, the sort of incentive reward structure is better for you. There'll be all sorts of things that come into play here. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the overarching thing I would say is you have to pick platforms that you know in your heart of hearts work great for your customers and your target market. If they don't, it doesn't almost matter what level of partner enablement they provide or their commercial model or anything else. If the product and the platform is not going to work great for your customers, then it's a non-starter from my perspective, and I know you feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you'd like to register for free for the mentor sessions with Jason Greenwood, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason. See you there.